Welcome to the Oil and Gas Sales and Marketing Podcast, where every week your hosts Mark LaCour and Matt Bertram share proven strategies and real-world tactics to help you connect with customers and close more deals. Let's do this.
Hey, we're back, everybody, sitting in our one of our new favorite places actually to record at. You know, Matt, I actually reached out to the owner, and I'm waiting to hear back. It's like, man, if y'all want some free publicity, we come record here. You know, you ought to let us
this
give
is
you a backlink
this is
or
great.
something.
It's right around the corner. It's a good environment. I like it. And now we're stepping it up. We're building like a whole studio in the back here. So.
And today we have a guest, which a lot of times we don't have. We actually have Michel Prive with us today.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
That's right. And the coffee here in this place is pretty good as well, I have to say.
See, a third party.
Look at that testimonial right there.
And so we're actually going to talk about something that we haven't talked about before, and it's all around dealing with sales changes. And Michel, you do a lot of work as either a fractional VP of sales or with your consulting work around sales strategy. And you see these changes and you see how it affects organizations, especially sales organizations. And my guess is it typically hurts sales performance, not helps sales performance. Is that right?
Absolutely. So typically my whole career and when I'm getting engaged with customers is that a change happen or a change needs to happen or a change is about to happen. And this is could be pre-acquisition, could be someone leaving. It could be, market collapsing or big customers, changing. So it affects people, it affects the business overall and the revenue.
Yeah. And so when somebody reaches out to you and go, look, we're having an issue. We had some changes going on. Our team is not performing. We're not generating the revenue that we normally generate. What's the first thing you do when you come in the door?
I would be, first of all, meeting the people. I'm looking at mindsets and I'm lucky to have access to tools to do assessment on the individual basis, on the sales team basis, on the sales management basis, and the overall team. So the first part will be very much the assessment, looking at how the customers are handling their own customers, if they know their customers. I've seen that over the time is that, organization who have, or especially salespeople who have been in their jobs or, for a long time, they stop to listen carefully to their clients. And so I would be doing, some very basic one-on-one assessment.
I've seen it where I've had a sales team sell to the same 3 or 4 clients for a decade, and they still don't know the client's business. They basically were order takers, never took the time to learn the client's business. And then when something important changed, they didn't know how to deal with it.
Yes, about a month ago, I did a workshop at one division of a multi-billion-dollar company, and I asked each one of the salespeople to select their ideal client profile and the buyer persona, and to discover that in fact, those guys who decided to pick up the customers they wanted, how less or not enough that they knew about their clients, and especially what makes their clients' days difficult. So we had to reassess this part here, and we generated some actions to get that fixed.
Yeah, that's super important. You mentioned client persona. It's one of the things Matt has taught me very much. Even that can change, right? So as you go through time, the person or the organization that buys from you changes, and the reason they buy from you changes, and that's something else that you deal with.
Absolutely. What we've seen, and with Matt here, talking about marketing, especially during COVID, our profession in sales has changed dramatically. Where before we were able to have face-to-face meetings there and build up the relationship, we stopped being able to do this. That trigger, in fact, and the same for the buyers, that triggers some behavior change.
Oh, yeah.
That the buyers now are, they have access to tools, plenty of tools, to be able to pre-qualify, in fact, what you wanted to sell, if you are the right candidates. So to answer the questions, over the years, the buyers change, the behavior change, the way they communicate change. I've got I saw customers taking orders on WhatsApp.
Yeah. On WhatsApp. That's a new one.
Well, $40,000 asset on WhatsApp. the salesperson never talk to the individuals.
Well, that is contractual. Okay. So anything in text or email is contractual. It's just the comfort level of people doing that since COVID. I mean, really, it's even shortened the sales cycles a lot.
Absolutely.
Because you can meet with people more frequently remotely than it takes to get a meeting. Or even like I was getting pulled into like some of these like lunches, right? Like multiple lunches. And I was like, I do not have time for like a 2-hour lunch today. I got other stuff that's going on, and so it's just changed how people buy, how people do research, and the decision-making process. And I just think that, Mark, why we started this podcast, that intersection of that information. I mean, this data point, which I've said multiple times, which we were talking about, is 85% of the people are like doing their own research and kind of looking to buy before they raise their hand and start talking to a sales order. And so the lead nurturing process can be developed and really help the salespeople as kind of like air cover or auxiliary support as you're doing that account-based selling or you're developing new prospects. And it opens up your tools, like for tools to assess new clients, as well as for clients to access vendors. And you can use all these tools to help make better educated decisions.
It is amazing how much COVID changed all that. And even though I like to consider myself a very aware person, even though I'm not always aware, recently I had somebody do just a plain old fashioned phone call with me, no screen, no video. And it's like, I forgot what that was like. I sort of like that, but that's before COVID, that's all we did was conference calls, right? There was no video conference. It was there, but we didn't use it like we use it today.
So I will tell you, I know that this is a LinkedIn failure tip, but we can talk about it next one. I use the QR code. Okay. The QR code in LinkedIn to connect with people 9 times out of 10 versus business cards today.
Yeah. I started doing that too. Now LinkedIn moved that damn QR code about 6 months ago.
No.
Well, it used to be in the top where we are now.
They might have moved it. They move stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But
anyway, it's a great way instead of a business card. You're absolutely right.
Well, if you just go into network, say I'll do it right here. And there's this blue button. Once you go to your network, you click on that and then it has the QR code there. And then you can also scan to the camera. And I mean, I've done this so many times, like when I'm not carrying business cards, I run into somebody, hey, let's connect. And then you use LinkedIn as like a AOL Instant Messenger for everybody listening, where you can communicate with people. And then, I mean, after you're talking to them, if that's the medium you're talking on and you're comfortable with, yeah, I take orders on that sort of thing, right? Exactly. Or I send links, or here's a buy link or whatever. Yeah.
Well, until LinkedIn sponsors this show, we're going to go back to our subject. Although LinkedIn, if you're listening, you'd make a great sponsor for this show as much as we all use it. So another thing, Michel, that happens a lot is you will see businesses change, especially in oil and gas. So right now, today is 2024. Natural gas is at historically low price. A lot of the natural gas producers like EQT are actually shutting in wells because they're not making any money. So if you're a salesperson that sells things like gas compression engines, access to pipeline, gas dryers, you're dying right now. You're suffering. However, crude's up. And so the people that sell, well parts and pieces, mud pumps and all that stuff are doing really good. So, if a business changes because of market conditions, that's another reason that they may need to bring somebody like you in to help them figure out how do you deal with these new market conditions.
Absolutely, and especially when your business is fluctuating. We know that this is cyclical, except if there's a revolution, let's say that. But so this is when you have downtime, you need to change, in fact, your focus and your activities in sales. So your customers are not buying, but this is maybe at the right moment to do other things. So you have to look at potentially where should be using not so much about your product, but your capabilities. You have to reposition eventually your business into services instead of selling, or both. Or it could be just doing housekeeping. When I'm saying housekeeping is that what we've seen organizations who are locked into one position and very much the victim of the market conditions, they need to have to adapt themselves. Yes. Because otherwise they're going to be there into the next cycle again. And so housekeeping would be about reestablishing or writing processes, allowing the company to be more agile to changes, and be able after that also to expand in other places in the world, diversify in other markets. But to be able to do this, you have to have the right mindset right from the beginning. And I met several customers who just throw their arms in the air that, well, it's the market is going down, so we're going to be scrolling down, and let's hope that the other, it's not going to be too long to last. So what I'm bringing in is that this is not fatality. We can make it different. There are different outcomes. I got that, my original background is very much from the aerospace. I grew up in aerospace, and that was at the time when aerospace was very cyclical. I don't know if you remember, you had the good years, you had the terrible years all the time. And the company I was working for, in fact, on the sales side, we were so much working with our customers, developing the new generation of products, the new technology. We were, in fact, working the most at that time. So to be clear that even if we didn't have any orders on the engineering side, on the customer's partnership for the new technology to bring, we were spending quite a lot of time. And we were, in fact, harvesting our efforts a little bit later. Well, aerospace is a long cycle sales, so we know that. But we were always coming up or coming back from the crisis much stronger than when we came into the crisis. There's always something to be done in sales.
100%.
I agree with that. Yeah.
No matter what, the cycles you are in.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you right now, all your sales leaders in oil and gas, that when your numbers aren't right, you blame it on the market. Stop it. There's always opportunity. In fact, I would venture to say that during a down cycle, there's more opportunity than when there's an up cycle. Because when there's an up cycle, everybody's busy and they're not taking the time to look at new products or services. They just need to get stuff done. In a down cycle in oil and gas, people will stop and listen because they're not generating revenue.
Well, that's where you do the house cleaning. I like that analogy of house cleaning. And that's where you reposition and that's where you strengthen. And if you can do good in the down cycle, the weaker players are going to fall off. You can grow pretty substantially on the upswing. And so, I'm looking at the car industry, some stuff we did with Ford, like they sold through the down cycle and came out so much stronger than the other car companies. Okay. That was the answer to the problem is let's market and sell and build the brand and position ourselves well so that when there's another car buying cycle, we're the market leader.
What you don't know, because you and I never talk, even though you're our chief marketing officer, is I came back this morning from a car dealership. We just closed a deal. We have a new podcast that a car dealership is sponsoring. So to your point, you would not think a car dealership would be a customer of OGGN's. However, I looked outside the box and said, what do car dealerships look for, especially luxury cars? They look for high net worth individuals. What's one of the characteristics of our audiences, Matt, since they work in oil and gas? They're high net worth individuals.
Yeah,
so just by making a mental shift, to your point, I opened up a new market. If this thing works, we now have a different line of potential customers for OGGN outside of the companies that work in the oil and gas space.
Blue ocean.
Oh, absolutely. And, and that's one of the things that, about the change is the mindset of being open and be able to recognize, listening very carefully to whoever you are contacting and be open, being creative as well, innovative. And be able to carry after that these words to someone.
Yeah.
The market research, like that, I think the market research, because we were talking about how things shift over time. Like you got to really know who your customer is. Make sure it's the right kind of customer. Because a lot of times salespeople think someone's their customer, but for whatever reason, whether it be margin, whether it be like the bulk of the business, like how maybe their sales basket is set, this is who their most important client is, but they don't understand maybe the bigger goals and everything has to be aligned properly. And I would even say I've seen incentives, Mark, being out of whack cause salespeople to do things that are not in line with the business that have to be repositioned. Or, that's what's dictating how driving activity for salespeople. And if that's not aligned with what you're trying to do, people are going to work loopholes if they're good and work the system. And it's going to take your business in directions you might not want to go.
I was that guy. In my past career, my company set up certain goals for salespeople. And what did I do? I maximized my personal income. It wasn't the best for the company, but they set up the wrong incentives, which drove the wrong behavior. And we were talking about this earlier. Salespeople will always game the system. engineers, project managers, accountants never think of it. Salespeople always at game system. So you're 100% right. And that's actually, I'm guessing, one of the things that you help
Absolutely.
with is helping set incentives to make sure you drive the right behavior.
Exactly. And I've been a business owner myself. So I've been managing. I'm an engineer by training. If I came
Wait,
into
you have
the
a
sales,
personality. How are you an engineer by training?
well, I
Sales
love,
engineer.
I'm an engineer, and I became a sales person, then a sales leader then. But I approach the sales very similar way as an engineer. I like the creativity. I like, what is happening there. But to come back to your point, yes, we do incentive plans. We help business owners to create incentive plans that are in fact mattering for the business owners. And it's not, the incentive plans needs not to be on the quarter. It needs to be on the years. It has to be attached directly to the business strategy, then the sales strategy, then the immediate needs for the quarters. So you need components of all of this into it, so that if the sales guy is doing good with their customers, the business will do good as well. No one is losing. And obviously, those compensation plans needs to be reviewable on a quarterly basis because market conditions change. And you want in your team as well, a component of a teamwork and team efforts combined together. But it's a long answer to your questions,
No, it's
Mark.
a great answer. And you made me think of something. You talked about earlier about actually doing assessments. And if people aren't familiar with that, which you should be if you're in sales and marketing, basically you're measuring people's experience and maybe their personality traits. And you're doing that because you want to compare that to other bits of data. So when you come in and you do an assessment of sales team, what I'm guessing is by doing that assessment, you can individualize the help. So I'm guessing that one salesperson may not want to talk about price. One salesperson may not be good at closing. One salesperson may not be good at generating leads. And if you measure that and recognize that, then you can individually target that salesperson that needs to understand how to close a deal and just train them on that. Am I close?
Yes, you are close. Or if one of the first things that I do as well is to validate the coachability of the individuals.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because, this is part of the assessment, is the ability to listen to others. And, if you see people that are closing, they are not good at being coached. And that even for salespeople, they generally have difficulty to hide that. It's easier because it could be just moving people from one job or one set of tasks that they are doing in the sales process into another set of tasks where they won't have to talk about the pricing. It will be repeated orders. It will be customers, very much key account customers management, more on the ability to expand the customers to sell more, less transactional, more strategic. So once again, the assessment is covering this. And obviously what you want in your sales team, you want a little bit of everything,
right,
to be able to function the best way. But what the assessment is about as well is that to identify if you have a sales team with a lot of people who are not good at talking about price. Well, training is very important, obviously. But after that, for the next recruitment, to balance the team, you, in fact, using the assessment to create your job descriptions for the next one to come in. And obviously, because customers are changing, that was the beginning of the discussions here. The communication methods, the people you are talking to, you have to adapt. You have to be sure that your team stay very much in line into this. So you might have some changes, and the new changes or the replacement will be more in line, in fact, with what you want to do next, today and tomorrow, more than what you did in the past.
I love that. So now you can hire for fit. Right?
Yes.
It's sort of like if you had a football team and you need a new quarterback, the rest of the team is solid. You can hire just the quarterback.
Exactly.
Well, I think setting that baseline is super important to know what you're working with, and also the capabilities of every salesperson are different, right? And you can, when I was on a pharma team, okay, I know we're talking about oil and gas, but they had different people with different skill sets at different ages that would connect with different people as well. And we were all selling the kind of the same bag because everybody had like a different vector or approach or angle. But I think that like understanding, like, I don't know, I use the analogy of like a video game, like you're on a race car and you're going around the track or you're going through that cycle, and like, what do you need to upgrade? Like, what do you need to improve? And then well, you've talked about this a lot, Marcus, getting that customer feedback. So really understanding the customer feedback and getting that third party data to even bring in somebody that can look at that to give you perspective of what you're seeing every day. Like, people can see things super clearly, and then building that all-star team. I really like that. I like that idea.
And I also like the idea of moving people around if it's not a good fit. How many of us have seen where the top performing sales guy in the team or girl gets promoted to sales leader and fails miserably, right? Because what made them a great sales contributor up front is a different set of skill sets and experience that it takes to lead a sales team. Biggest mistake I ever made in my career was taking that jump, moving from a frontline salesperson to salesman. I was horrible at it, and I didn't make enough money, right? Because everybody else had to hit their number, so I went back to being a frontline salesperson.
Oil and gas, I think, does a pretty good job of this. Like with you talk about like technical managers and like managers, like they separate that out, understanding that delineation between, you're like a technical advisor, but maybe you don't want to be a manager, right? And do the managerial things. And I think the same thing can be done in sales, and understanding what is the sequence of events when we talk about that customer journey that person needs to hear, and who needs to be brought into the conversation and who's going to connect with the right person. So when you have this team, you're basically like a symphony orchestrating what's happening and how people are interacting. And I can tell you, like, certainly I think belief is like, some people don't have an issue with price because they don't believe in the cost of whatever they're selling. And there needs to be education behind that, because this transfer of enthusiasm is absolutely critical. The one thing I wanted to ask you about was like, how do you deal with prima donnas? Okay. And if everybody understands it, like,
oh yes.
So the sales all-stars that just don't take the direction, that maybe are not the team players, but they're so critical to your business. That's some of the bigger issue, I think, when you have a sales team. If you have some of these legacy people in there that are so good, like, what do you do with them?
Well, that's excellent. We all met prima donnas. We might have been prima donnas ourselves. So, I was kind of a one too. So, and
age out of it. I don't know.
I was lucky every time in my career to have mentors who manage this part there. So obviously you need a mentor. And in the part of the prima donnas, when I'm coming in as an organization or in new job, they very much come to you first.
Yep.
So obviously you have to welcome them first for who they are. And one of the things that I would be ask them is to contribute to help me in my role of educating others to become as good as they are. And we talked about an incentive plan.
There you go.
And because an incentive plan for prima donnas, you should have also to help them, because they are competitive, to have a function or to have a component of their incentive plans to help others, to share what they do well with the others, and accompanying them into this mentorship that you try to implement into the team. And so most of the time, we are in sales or sales or marketing. Egos are big in sales. And if you don't have a sales team with egos, that means that you have a potential issue here. You have employees. You don't want them. You want competitors. So the whole idea is very much to harness this ego, this competitiveness for the good of the team. I'm not saying to get the money from the individuals in the pocket of the team. Is to get some of the time of the big competitors to be shared to help the team to grow up.
I love that. And I was one of those prima donnas. And now that you said all this, I just realized that one of my sales managers pulled that exact thing on me. Now, I thought, before we had this conversation, I thought that he really needed the help. Now I think he was just dealing with one of his top performers, because that's what I got. That's exactly the same thing. He asked me to help bring some of the junior salespeople up to my level if they could come shadow me. And then I would explain to them why I did certain things and why I didn't. And a part of my compensation was based on that. Oh my God, I just realized I got managed.
And your ego was satisfied.
And I loved it.
Exactly.
Loved it.
Well, I would tell you, I think what I've seen happen is ask them to do the coaching, but don't tie it to any kind of incentive. And then and it looks as like more work, right? Like, do I want to take on more work? So I think it's aligning that incentive with what the goals of the company are, because, you know, you're speaking to someone's ego or whatever, and you got the mentorship component, which people can step into that role. But I think you have to have that aligned with the incentive plan to encourage them to do it, where it doesn't feel like here's an extra chip on your shoulder that you have to carry.
And that's the reason why it's important to do for those prima donnas. If you have the liberty to do it, is to have their incentive plans on that part together with them.
I like that. Yeah.
Because together with them, so that means to be a trade on, or it could be that they get a piece of what the other guys are doing for them. So
or an override or something like that.
Exactly.
You know?
So so that means that there's nothing forced upon, and if you are smart, you make sure this is their ideas. But they see you from a distance if they are not stupid. So I like to put things on the table and let them know what I'm doing. Yeah.
So I have a question, and this is come out from right field. But Matt and I firmly believe that in oil and gas, that sales and marketing teams should be joined at the hip, should be a team as in one, even though they do different duties. And we even think their compensation should be connected, as in the marketing team compensation should somehow be tied into sales performance. What do you think about that idea?
Absolutely. It's to me, I see, I looked at it as a customer's journey.
Yeah.
So the customer's journey start very much from from what marketing is expressing to loyalty, and it goes from the lead generation, the qualification, then after that closing the orders, understanding why we lose the business, then after that the repeat orders, to the loyalty, to the key account management, and then after that the transformation of its own brand or services, according to what the customers are asking you to do. So obviously everybody is very much connected into this, because it doesn't start with marketing and stop where marketing and sales starts. It's an overlap. And the best way to do it is very much to look at these aspects, not from the departments, but from the customer's perspective.
Love it.
The customers, the journey of the customers, so that if you look at what Amazon is doing, we have very high regard. We are huge consumers of Amazon. They're very much doing this. And so they make it so easy for the customers to buy from them and repeat them.
So the question I have to piggyback on the question of customer journey is, I would like to hear from you, if someone brought you on to help them and they had a struggling sales organization, okay, like what are some of the big kind of red flags to say, oh my gosh, I have an issue. I need outside help. Right. But then what does that customer journey look like when they bring you on? Like we talked about, like looking at the sales team, setting the baseline, incentives. Like, could you just paint the picture kind of all the way through so someone knows, like start to finish, what that might look like?
That's a complex question.
And it could vary, but let's say like most of the time it will follow this general path.
Part of my own assessment of the customers here is that I'm looking at attrition.
Okay.
Attrition rate is very important. If they are in a business, a B2B business, where what they sell should be a repeat business and they have very high attrition rate, it means they are not doing, there's something they don't do right. So after that, the attrition would be, is the customer cyclical? So that means could be assigned to they buy too much stock, or, that could be, related to other aspects there. But attrition rate is very much a big teller. And most of the time when I do my assessment, customers don't know. Sometimes, they see that they start the year they want to grow, let's say they have $10 million business, they want to be 11, but they just realize that in fact, they don't need to grow by $1 million. Yeah. They need to grow by $2.5 million. So one part of the business strategy would be, and this is the business strategy, not the sales strategy.
Customer retention.
Is the customer retention. Yeah. What are we doing to make sure that we don't have to swim with ski shoes against the current?
Right.
I like that.
It's so that means that, so on the sales side, it means that the customer loyalty has to be taken care of. And then after that, what more can we sell to existing clients? We know this is the shortest sales
Increase the
cycles.
basket size, absolutely.
And then after that, where can we be bringing people in?
Yeah.
So this is, and this is very common. Big business, small business. It's very common. So I hope I answered those questions.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
I do want to go back and revisit the prima donna thing just real quick. Matt, did somebody just hand deliver you lunch while we're recording a podcast?
No.
Yes, they did. So I think Matt definitely falls in the prima donna category, at least today. Just giving you a little bit of hard time, Matt. And we're getting close where we need to be winding things down. This has been a fantastic conversation. If people wanted to learn more about you and your business, where should they go?
They should go to LinkedIn.
Yeah, and we'll have a link in the show notes for LinkedIn profile. So make sure you go check everything out. Matt and I's social media accounts are all in the show notes as well. We're hard and heavy on our insiders group. Sign up for our 2 newsletters, both the Sunday update and the actual oil and gas events newsletter, especially if you're in sales and marketing. It's super valuable stuff. Now it's time for our LinkedIn fail or tip of the week. And we always hand it over to our guests. Do you have one?
Well, yes, I would say that I tried to do, a failure that was my own failure, not dealing as a professional, try to have one of the podcasts on a very specific educative topic. And, few minutes before the topic, I found out that it was the link was not working. So I felt very much, so it was, and I had a lot of people coming in. So I still didn't recover from that because I've not done that. So, that's a failure. What I'm using and a tip for everyone is very much, I try to be educative into my posting for LinkedIn. It would be on tips for sales. It would be some reminders of some sort. Or if I see something that for sales, I'm not posting socially on LinkedIn, but it would be on the good practices and all that I see from you, Mark or Matt, about reminding people or extrapolate it to, that we should be doing this or doing that. I don't like to be told what to do, but it's just a reminder.
It is sometimes nice to be reminded of the basics. The fundamentals. The fundamentals never go out of style.
No.
And one of the things we all do, myself included, is sometimes I forget, right, to go back to the basics. So the one I mess up on all the time is when I have a new client. And I preach this, but I don't always do it. I have a new client. The first thing you need to do is go deep and wide, just in case something happens to that contact. They get fired, they quit, they go somewhere else. And, in the last couple of years, I've quit doing that. And that's come back and bit me in the butt several times. So, yeah, going back to basics is always a great tip.
Well, I think the content marketing component of it is staying top of mind. I think everybody logs into LinkedIn. Well, the data was a couple of years ago, every 21 days. I think maybe that has increased, but content marketing on LinkedIn is fantastic to build yourself as an authority, as an expert, to stay top of mind and to put good information out there and be an option. And I think I've curated my feed where, I get stuff that I want to see right over time, and you've liked stuff, and it's nice to get that, and especially to have those best practices.
I tell you what, though, Matt, it makes LinkedIn so much more useful if you take the time and curate your feed.
Oh, yeah.
So then you're only getting stuff that you want to see. If you're getting stuff you don't want to see, it's your fault.
If you're looking at stuff, spending too much time on stuff, looking at stuff, sharing stuff, anything like that, it shows in what it's recommending to you. So it's a really good mirror to see how you're being profiled by the algorithm.
I think on that note, we'll get out of here. This has been awesome. Thanks for joining us. We have to get you back on.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Remember, folks, make a difference and not a sale.
Check us out next week for another enriching and cheeky episode of Oil and Gas Sales and Marketing Podcast, a production of the Oil and Gas Global Network. Learn more at OGGN.com.